Well, okay, my name is Craig Miner. I run the Miner Family Gallery on the island of Martha's Vineyard. I am a mixed media artist. I do mostly representational abstract. I share the gallery space with my son Avery, who's a sculptor, and my wife Michelle, who curates retail in our space. We live a life on Martha's Vineyard that allows us to have a lot of time spent enjoying the outdoors, the joys of a small community, and still we're surrounded by 200,000 international visitors during the summer. So we're exposed to a lot of different interesting things that we wouldn't get a chance to see if we lived in a different place. And I think my gallery reflects that. We mostly a commission artist, so we really like to give bespoke work to clients who understand the legacy of what it is we're trying to create out here. My work is a really strongly color balanced work, so it really does offer a palette for an international clientele, which I do have. Most of my work leaves and heads to the cities around the country. And like I find that my life here on Martha's Vineyard, the beach life and the water life and this whole thing just serves as an inspiration for work that is not necessarily island related. Like I always say, I could spend 6 or 8 hours at the beach painting and come back and paint a giant hand grenade, because it's an inspiration of my life here and the people that surround me, the interesting group of people that we decide to surround ourselves with that keeps a lot of us here in the space. I think our gallery likes to reflect that too. We really try to open up the door for a lot of creatives. And again, it really all plays back into the lifestyle that we'd like to live. The kind of place we like to live, is reflected in all of our work. Our friendships and the activities that we decide to do and the things we do for our community. And our gallery likes to kind of reflect that as well. And having it be a family gallery, we really can make choices based on what would affect all of us and what, offers positive change for us. And so the artwork and the gallery and what we do is absolutely serves that purpose. My relationship with cannabis started as a younger man, and it's been something that I've utilized for a lot of different purposes through time. Really having an opportunity to kind of learn about the plant and refine like what it can do for me. I've actually used it in the last 15 or so years for medical reasons that have served me really well. I have issues with nasal polyps and sinus issues, and this has been for me really crazy mitigating factor, a way to treat without having to take like standard medicines. I've really eliminated quite a few, and just to learn the properties and what different forms of cannabis can offer. Has really helped me kind of again mitigate using other substances and things to be able to take care of like just my day-to-day maintenance of actual health. I think those things are important for people to understand that, there's a reason why medical marijuana has become so, ubiquitous with a lot of people eliminating other substances and things from their time if they know how to use it properly. Which is one of the things I said was really, I told Michael when I originally told him and I'd try the product, I said, like, if this was the first way I'd ever tried to smoke before, it's so elegant compared to it seems almost archaic, the standard form of flower that I've had for the majority of my life. I said to him I was just so impressed with and I had made a comment as well. I said it's not, this isn't like some gimmick. It absolutely has a space in my shelf for like a place where it would sit, in my use, especially for the medicinal end of it, outside of recreational use. I was just so impressed and impressed upon other people who would be normally resistant to enjoying flower, just straight up flower. Based on the fact that they've gotten used to, say they're using an oil pen or vaporizers or other ways to have flower. It's so clean and elegant, and it smokes in such a nice way that it really kind of reintroduced a few people I know to actually using flower. Which is cool. It's a really nice to be able to say to someone like, oh, I got turned on to something. It's really special. Let me share this with you. So you can try it. And that they find like, wow, this is so different. This is so different from, previous experiences. I think people like I'm 58 years old. So I came up on some pretty bad flour. over time, and
Yes.
it's a struggle where you really had no control over what it was you were going to have and what it might be able to do to help you. So, the medicinal effects of it were oftentimes mitigated by the strains or the quality of the grow or the fact there could be mold or all these features that can make the flower, dangerous in a lot of ways. Now,
Hmm.
since I've been using, I've had my medical card and I've had taken advantage of the systems that Massachusetts has to offer. I really feel like, I'm in concert with my doctors, the people that I do get my medical card with, and, with the people at the dispensaries determining like what product is actually going to help me and be the most beneficial and to offer me all the other parts of it that I enjoy as well. There's a lot of subsets to that. The joke I make is that when I remember when marijuana first became legal in California, the guy who started Oaksterdam and all that, when he went to get his medical card, they asked him his reason to have the card. And he said, for alcoholism. He's like, because I don't want to drink too much. And so there's a lot of facets to kind of like why someone would use the flower. When I
Hmm.
tried this product, I was so surprised of so many. I can keep going on. I don't want to bore you guys, but I had thought about this quite a bit. So when I opened the jar, I couldn't believe, like I said, all the things that you find to be appealing about the presentation of the weed as far as the smell is concerned, the way the buds, they were like soft but not dry. There was a really interesting textural kind of experience. And then also you still have all the lovely, like, you get this great aroma from it, and you have like this, so there's a lot of the main factors that you'd normally find if you were to purchase normal dried flour are all there. But there's also this kind of, like you said, it's a larger portion because it's dried out, the lightness to it, but it actually does smoke, no quicker than the regular bud would too. So that's impressive. I was under the impression when I first got to it that, oh, this is just going to fire up so quickly because, some of this other green matter that your people smoke don't realize that's part of the high that they like until they get it out of their system and realize that the part that's actually, helps them is still kind of all there. So, yeah, I was really impressed and surprised and started to read up about the process, realizing just how different and clean it was. I like to smoke out of clean glass if I'm going to smoke straight flower. And it's amazing after that you do enjoy the product and then you realize that there's barely any like of the kind of sticky residues that are really the components that you want to remove from your smoking process. So, and then after Michael had asked me and we had spoken about this, I took advantage of the time to use the flower in a few different ways. So we tried it in a volcano vaporizer, which was
Mm.
amazing. Like it's basically they should sell it along with the volcano. But I also cleaned out my packs that I hadn't been using as well
Mm.
to try that because I figured like that's a much more simpler process. And normally with the packs you can find with some of the less well developed and curated flour that's dried, it can get to be a little bit more of a kind of a sticky process after a while. And I found that that was not the case with that. So that's pretty cool that that's a subset of the product. Get eighths of different kinds of flour. So when this came as a 3.5 gram container, I was surprised at how voluminous it appears in your hand, knowing that it's still the same amount of weight. Again, like mitigating factors of using it medicinally to like relieve pressures and things like sinus pressures, or if I have like back pains, I have chronic Lyme disease and some other things that where that muscular pain relief and the comfort that comes from it is one part that helps as a motivating factor towards creation. But what I often find sometimes is what a product, especially I found with this because of it's a lighter smoke to start. I mean, THC wise, it isn't, but it's a softer smoke that it would be inspiring to me to be like, pull out a clean glass, put a small piece of this in there, to enjoy that, and then it gets me to the canvas. Like it's the motivation to be like start my process, offer myself some relief, and to create this clean like energy space with that's like I said in particular I found it to be very appealing. It's got qualities to it that you just don't find in straight flower. And like I said, I think it's really a creative um way because the market is so saturated with all these different products right now, and you go into a dispensary and they got everything thing under the sun, but what people actually need and what they're producing isn't necessarily match up. This is a product that I think most smokers could benefit from, A, because of just its less green matter in the smoke. So it makes it for a much more gentler, smoking experience that would inspire you to probably be more likely to be like, oh, I'll have a puff of this rather than some other, like an oil pen or some other product. It would make me inclined to reach for flower, which has a more full spectrum effect a lot of times than you would find like with oil or a shatter or all these other products people use to kind of up their THC game. I find that this actually inspires me more. And like I said, I've been enjoying it, to the point where it's like I just reach for it first off, or anyone that I know is any kind of connoisseur, I'm like, you have to try something special, not new or different, but special. It's a different it's a, like I said, it's a redefining style, and this isn't just for marketing purposes. As a user, it definitely is something different. Like, it's special. It isn't what I can find if I walk into a regular dispensary anywhere where I live. So
Yeah.
to say that after 50, almost 59 years is a pretty impressive thing. And I said that to Michael initially. I said, like, this is no gimmick. This
Mhm.
is the real deal. This is a new way to approach cannabis use. And because of the fact that it has such a kind of like I said, I go, if I had been introduced to this first as weed, every other product would have seemed so inelegant. It's very elegant. This really is a new kind of way to approach flower, and cannabis use in general, especially for folks who are starting to look towards it as a way to mitigate use of other medical stuff. You know what I mean? Like someone that's like, ooh, they want to dip their toe in. Sometimes a 40% sativa flower in a pipe is too much for them. But this is
Mhm.
something that they can actually, like I said, someone who's not used to smoking or on a regular basis can actually kind of find a way to get that full spectrum of the flower without that kind of oppressive thing that comes with these oversaturated flowers that are very popular these days. So clearly evident the amount of green matter that you're not smoking, or at least that the effect and the feeling of it, the softness. Like I tried to describe, it's hard to describe smoke as soft. People are used to like oil pens and all that, and it's not like that. It doesn't feel like harsh. It's very gentle feeling, but no less of a vehicle. Like I don't smoke any larger or smaller or larger portion of the SpaceWeed than I do with any traditional flower. I smoke the same amount I would smoke, except you have
Mhm.
this great, 3.5 grams of that is this big container of that. So I honestly feel like for the effect, and the like kind of flower that I generally smoke versus what I've had for the two strains of SpaceWeed that I've got to try, I find that, probably for a lesser amount, I'm feeling the same level of experience as far as the high is concerned, which it was
Mhm.
quite surprising. I have to be honest with you. Initially, I was imagining, well, with all this product taking out, it'll probably take more than that. But I find that, as I mentioned, I usually like to use a clean glass, like one hit pipe that I can clean with each use. So each time it's a clean, fresh thing. And then I use a very small portion of the flower to initially to put myself in the position to start to enjoy it. So it really is so nice. It's kind of a softer, gentler hit. I don't really use smoke as much, and I'm feeling the same effects from it. I found that I couldn't believe the how long these jars have lasted, and me reaching for them over the other flower. I have the jars stacking up, and I've just about finished the two jars. So that certainly speaks to the fact that I certainly choose it over that. And the way the buds break up, even after I've had the jars open for a while, it doesn't feel dry in any way. It just feels kind of soft, which is so interesting because you would expect
Mhm.
after the thing's been open for a month or whatever, even a couple of weeks, that this stuff would become that way, but it doesn't. So whatever that portion of the process that works certainly makes it, it's not comparable to regular flour, which, like I said, it just seems archaic, in comparison.